The National Desk, America's News Now. Happening now, production uncertainty as Saudi Arabia announces production cuts. What does it mean for gas prices here in the U.S. this summer season? Also today, Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, in the crosshairs of the House Oversight Committee, the action Republican House leaders plan to take.
Americans have lost trust in the FBI's ability to enforce the law impartially and demand answers, transparency, and accountability.
And the entertainment industry bracing for more delays as a new Hollywood group considers a strike. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. Hey there, I'm Eugene Ramirez. The unofficial start of the summer season usually brings a leveling off or a drop in gas prices, but OPEC officials are signaling a cut of 1 million barrels a day in oil production starting in July. Now, expectations are that this could have you paying higher gas prices at the pump just when we were all starting to get a break here. Now, earlier this spring, the U.S. Energy Information Administration projected summer prices to hover around $3.50 nationally, possibly falling to $3.45 by August, consistent with season trends. Today, crude prices maintain their level, not budging and trading, prompting a response at today's White House press conference. Take a listen.
You see the price of oil was not dramatically affected by this announcement of these additional cuts, and the price of gasoline continues to come down.
AAA shows that national regular gas has stalled across the country, $3.55 for a gallon of regular today. That's the same as yesterday, down slightly from last week, but just about equal to what it was a month ago. Now, this could have the biggest impact on the West Coast, as some prices in Washington, Oregon, Hawaii, and California are already over $4 a gallon, as high as $4.86 over there in the West Coast. Altra Elishar has more on OPEC's decision and what it could mean for all of us this summer.
Filling up at the pump this summer won't hurt your wallet nearly as much as last summer. On Monday, the national average for a gallon of regular gas was about $1.35 less than it was on June 5th of last year, according to Gas Buddy. Global oil prices have hovered in the mid-$70 per barrel range since late April. That's an issue for Saudi Arabia, the world's top oil producer, which needs prices to be more than 10% higher than that to sustain its government budget. All of this leading to the kingdom's announcement it's cutting production by 1 million barrels per day in July.
This is putting Saudi oil production at some of the lowest levels we've seen in quite some time.
Gas Buddy's Patrick DeHaan says the immediate impact at pumps in the U.S. will be barely noticeable.
It would be fairly mundane in the next couple of weeks, maybe cents per gallon, maybe 3 to 6 cents a gallon.
And in some states, he says, 5 to 15 cents.
Announcements of other production cuts from OPEC Plus over the last 8 months or so also came with worries of upward pressure on prices that have yet to materialize. And the full impact here in the U.S. may not be realized for months to come and depend on decisions from the Federal Reserve.
If the central bank eases off its policy tightening tools like raising interest rates, demand for gas could pick back up and the oil production cuts could compound a run on supply. But right now...
So I think Americans are just a little bit anxious over what lies ahead, and that could be leading to some of the weakness in demand that we've been seeing.
So as you can see, the levers of supply and demand really in a state of touch and go, and drivers naturally worried about more bumps in the road. In Washington, I'm Atra Elishar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Atra, thank you. This afternoon, police arrested the fifth and final suspect in the shooting at Hollywood Beach, Florida, that injured 9 people. Lionel Jean Charles Jr., one of the alleged shooters, is now in jail on multiple counts, including attempted murder. Police had arrested the 4th person yesterday, Ariel Cardin Paul. The bodies of 3 men who died in the aftermath of the collapsed residential building in Davenport, Iowa, were removed from the rubble, finally. The remains of Brandon Colvin Sr. and Ryan Hitchcock were recovered over the weekend, while Daniel Preen was identified and removed just this morning. Their families have now been informed. Now, at least one resident injured in the building's collapse has filed a lawsuit. Dana Feuberbach alleges that they knew conditions were deteriorating and failed to warn residents of the risk. That's the management company there at the apartment building. She alleges that multiple counts of negligence, and she's seeking unspecified damages right now. More lawsuits are likely to come here from other residents there. City officials didn't respond to the suit in their news conference today. The official investigation into the incident is still developing. The 2024 GOP field is continuing to expand. Former Vice President Mike Pence made it official today, filing paperwork to declare his presidential campaign, and he's going to formally launch his bid in Des Moines, Iowa, Wednesday, which is also, by the way, the day of his 64th birthday. Pence teeing up a challenge to his former boss, Donald Trump. He touts the accomplishment of the Trump-Pence administration, but says he represents a reliable conservative without the drama. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, one of former President Trump's harshest critics, expected to announce his 2024 run tomorrow at a town hall-style event in New Hampshire. Christie is likely to campaign heavily in that state, aiming to appeal to independents there. And North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, a little-known multimillionaire, also expected to announce Wednesday in Fargo, North Dakota. He's focused on energy policy with a goal of attaining carbon neutrality in his home state by the year 2030. And presidential candidate Nikki Haley says she is running for the White House because she wants to save the country. Now, this is in a CNN town hall. She said that she's the person to bring the U.S. forward right now. Take a listen.
It is time for a new generational leader. It is time for us to leave the baggage of the past, the negativity to the past, and start thinking of our families and the families across America.
Haley's held multiple events in Iowa since launching her campaign. Candidates who do well in Iowa typically do better in the presidential race. We'll see what happens with her. Meantime, New Hampshire's governor said today that he's ruled out a 2024 presidential bid after previously considering it. He tweeted, quote, "The stakes are too high for a crowded field to hand the nomination to a candidate who earns just 35% of the vote, and I will help to ensure this does not happen." And with the GOP field getting crowded right now, the Republican National Committee has released its guidelines for the candidates to qualify for its first primary debate. Now, prospects will need at least 1% in 3 national polls or 1% in 2 national polls in an early nominating state. Debaters also need at least 40,000 unique donors, with 200 of them coming from 20 different states. The first debate happening in Milwaukee on August 23rd. Turning to the Democratic field now, they're called long shots for a reason, but they'd argue they still have a shot. The National Desk chief political correspondent Scott Thuman shows us why.
To most, it's a given President Biden will easily stroll his way to securing the Democratic nomination again.
It's time to finish the job.
But it's an assumption some are anxious to break.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. hoping higher profile appearances like this Twitter forum with Elon Musk or joining Fox News will convince people he may be an outsider but shouldn't be counted out.
I mean, are you serious about this?
I just feel a tremendous amount of support. Our internal poll numbers are showing me stronger against both Republican candidates than President Biden.
The fellow Democrat, undoubtedly a long shot, upping his attacks, while Biden this weekend celebrated brokering a bipartisan debt ceiling bill.
No one got everything they wanted, but the American people got what they needed.
Unseating an incumbent in the primaries isn't easy. In fact, nobody has done so in modern American history. But these days, elections can be unpredictable. At play, Biden's age, approval ratings in the low 40s, and some recent polls that show small but potential opportunities. A new CNN survey shows 60% of likely Democratic voters back Biden, but a notable 20% want Kennedy. 8 support Marianne Williamson, and another 8 are looking for someone else.
We need a new beginning in this country, and the kind of incremental approaches that have been represented by this administration are not, to me, enough.
And if there are other weak points exposed, they could come in New Hampshire, where voters are still upset that Biden pushed the DNC to demote it from its early state status after he lost there in the 2020 primaries. But the state will still hold a non-binding primary, which could send a message that Democrats aren't in lockstep with their current leader. On Capitol Hill, Scott Thuman for the National Desk.
Well, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has elaborated on many of his views in a Twitter event that was hosted today by Elon Musk. Kennedy praised Musk's efforts to bring free speech to the platform and called traditional media outlets propaganda vessels of the government and large corporations.
I'd love to talk with you guys, but we don't have any comment today.
Can you tell us who you met with today? Can you let us know? Can you at some point?
No comment today. Thank you.
Lawyers for Donald Trump meeting with officials at the DOJ today. It's unclear exactly who they met with. Nobody's talking after the meeting, as you see there. Now, last month, Trump's lawyers requested a meeting with Attorney General Merrick Garland to discuss the, quote, ongoing injustice that's being perpetrated by special counsel Jack Smith. Meantime, the federal grand jury that's been hearing evidence in the Justice Department's investigation into former President Trump's handling of classified documents is expected to meet this week. According to NBC News, citing anonymous sources, the grand jury will meet in Washington, D.C., and it's unclear right now whether prosecutors are seeking an indictment here. Investigators are looking at whether Trump improperly kept classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago home in Florida after he left the Oval Office. You may notice some hazy skies today, and it could have been from wildfire smoke all the way from Canada. Fires blazing in Canada there are affecting air quality for millions of people in the U.S., with several U.S. cities right now issuing air quality alerts. All of this smoke coming from Nova Scotia. Reduced air quality possibly impacting at least 25 U.S. states, concentrated mostly in the Midwest. Meteorologists say new fires in Quebec province are responsible for much of the smoke right now. A forest fire in New Jersey has added to that problem, although right now it's been completely contained. New tonight, carbon dioxide rates in the air are increasing at record rates, according to NOAA. Officials said there hasn't been this much carbon dioxide in Earth's atmosphere in over 4 million years. An example for the increase right now, the CO2 measured in May in Hawaii was 51% higher than pre-industrial levels. Allstate becomes the most recent property insurance company to bail on the state of California. The fourth largest property insurance provider said higher building costs and inflation making it harder to do business in California. The company also pointing to worsening wildfires, which are putting increasing supply costs. State Farm Insurance has pulled out of California as well, and that could result in citizens relying more on the FAIR Plan, a state-based insurer of last resort for some areas. We learned today that the pilot of the plane that crashed in rural Virginia yesterday appeared to be slumped over and unresponsive. That's according to U.S. officials. Federal investigators have been working to recover the debris from that crash that killed 4 people. National Transportation Safety Board officials said today it could take days to go through the remote and mountainous terrain there and sort through that wreckage. 6 fighter jets were scrambled to intercept the small plane after it took an unusual flight path, bringing it over Washington, D.C., much of the area hearing a sonic boom from the supersonic speeds of the military aircraft as it chased that private aircraft. A preliminary report from the investigation will be released, but not for another 10 days or so. Coming up here on the National Desk, the FBI's briefing with Chairman Comer didn't go as planned, which could bring some consequences. We'll have more on that. Then Prince Harry, a no-show in court today during a trial over spying allegations, why he couldn't make it and when he might show up. And lawmakers have introduced a bill to create an Ebony Alert. We're going to explain the idea and the staggering statistic behind it as well. We'll be right back. Developing now, House Oversight Chair James Comer says he's moving forward with those contempt charges against the FBI Director, Christopher Wray. FBI officials meeting with House Oversight Chairman James Comer today and Ranking Member Jamie Raskin as well. They reviewed an unclassified document detailing accusations that President Joe Biden was conducting a bribery scheme, they say, when he was vice president at the time, but did not allow the committee personnel to keep that document. Now, Chairman Comer did not find that to be acceptable. He wanted to be able to have that document.
At the briefing, the FBI again refused to hand over the unclassified record to the custody of the House Oversight Committee, and we will now initiate contempt of Congress hearings this Thursday.
Ranking member Jamie Raskin said that per the briefing, an investigation had been made into the allegations and that the investigation was concluded while William Barr was Attorney General because the claim could not be verified.
So it's not the source, the confidential human source, who is the origin of the particular claim. That confidential human source is the person who reported that someone else was saying this, and that's why this task force was created, which examined it and then determined there was no reason to move up the chain of investigative procedures. Banks
might soon be forced to keep more cash on hand to offset potential financial losses, raising concerns that banks could pull back on lending now. That's under consideration after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, of course, earlier this year, according to the Wall Street Journal. The industry says it's not necessary, but regulators worry that banks are unprepared for shocks to the system. They're becoming more common due to social media triggering runs there at the banks. The changes could raise capital requirements by 20%. And there's also concern that such rules could further consolidate big banks. Regulators could propose the changes as soon as this month. General Motors will invest $1 billion into 2 Flint, Michigan plants. The investment will beef up production of next-generation internal combustion engine heavy-duty trucks. GM planning to go all-electric for passenger vehicles in the U.S. by the year 2035. But until then, we'll continue to put money into the gas-powered assembly lines for upgrades to buildings and tool equipment as well. Today was day 1 of Prince Harry's trial accusing tabloids of illegally spying on him. But the Duke did not show up in court as planned. His lawyer said he couldn't be there because he'd flown from Los Angeles yesterday after his daughter's birthday. Now, this is the first of Prince Harry's legal cases to go to trial, and in this suit, he alleges the publisher of the Daily Mirror unlawfully tapped his phone. Mirror Group newspapers saying that it did not hack Harry's phone. Harry's scheduled now to take the stand tomorrow to provide some evidence in this case. The Supreme Court announced today it will hear a trademark case using the former president's name. A California man, Stephen Elster, wanted to trademark the phrase "Trump too small" to sell on T-shirts, but his registration was denied by government officials, saying that Trump did not offer his consent for that. A federal appeals court ruled that refusing the trademark would be a violation of free speech rights. June is Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Awareness Month, and a new research program at The Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center is working to help those struggling with their mental health. It's called STRIVE, which stands for Suicide and Trauma Reduction Initiative for Veterans. It was originally developed for service members, but has since expanded to help all kinds of patients. Researchers say the program lasts about 2 weeks and helps patients develop personalized crisis plans and coping skills as well. More than 75% of those who completed the STRIVE program reported a reduction in suicide attempts, and 70% leave the program fully recovered from PTSD. Someone in the U.S. has a stroke about every 40 seconds. That's according to the American Heart Association. One man from Michigan is sharing his story in hopes of inspiring others to know those warning signs.
Get the blood flowing.
Working out here at Ascension Borges with a physical therapist assistant isn't exactly how 74-year-old Tom Raleigh thought he'd be spending his time.
About 5:30, I woke up and my right side wouldn't work. And I couldn't say anything. I couldn't speak.
But here at physical therapy is where Tom needs to be post-stroke.
Any pain this morning?
I had a little bit of hip pain, but other than that, I'm good. They ran CAT scans, X-rays, and all that kind of stuff, and they saw that there was a lesion in the brain.
Meet Wally.
Whenever I have my moments of not clarity or struggling to find the right words, those types of things, we call it Wally because it's a walnut size.
This is the spot on Tom's brain impacted by the stroke. Tom now working on strengthening his weakened right side.
Overall, I was surprised how high-functioning he was.
Tom's physical therapist assistant, Kosta Sevastopoulos, is happy with his progress, and much of that progress thanks to his immediate medical treatment.
He's coming around pretty good.
And pretty good sounds pretty great to Tom, considering what the ER doctors initially thought.
He had originally thought I was done for. And then, well, if he does survive it, he'll be in long-term care.
His story, somewhat of a miracle, going into the hospital on a Monday and walking out Thursday. On average in the U.S., someone dies from a stroke every 3 minutes and 13 seconds.
So good to be alive.
The American Heart Association reminds you to think of the acronym FAST when it comes to a stroke. You see there what that means. Coming up here, the shocking statistics that led to the idea for an Ebony Alert. We're going to explain what it is and how it would work right after the break. The National Desk taking the pulse of America, and we start with an idea to create an Ebony Alert to help find missing black youth and young women.
We had some internal people, do some research, and we noticed that disproportionately there are a lot of missing black youth, a lot of black youth missing in America. We make up 13.4% of the United States population, but however, 40% of those missing are black. And so we thought that was just a very staggering statistic.
Leading to this, Senate Bill 673. State Senator Stephen Bradford from Southern California presented the bill that is co-authored with State Senator Ana Caballero from Merced. The bill would create the Ebony Alert to bring greater attention to missing black youth and young black women in California. It would work similar to the current Amber Alert system, but would expand the criteria, which currently includes 17 years old and under, victim of abduction, imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death, and sufficient description of victim, suspect, or vehicle.
Good to see you, brother.
Joseph Riverton's mission is the same as it's always been.
We just want you guys to know that we love you, man.
Even as the surroundings have greatly changed.
We want to get these guys into services. We want to continue sharing that, hey, there's a better way, there's a better life. You don't have to live like this.
We shadowed this outreach volunteer here at the newest hotspot for Berian's homeless, Dottie Harper Park.
There's a skate park right there. There's little children that come to play on this playground. And so it is rather unfortunate.
Joseph told us all the people in this camp simply traveled a few blocks after they were forced from this site. Already eviction warnings, as you see, have been posted here, all as people nearby grapple with this sudden, unexpected addition to their neighborhoods.
So far, Roger Bonagdar says 100 ex-Bitwise workers in the Fresno area are preparing to sue the company after being furloughed Monday, and his law firm is hoping to get justice for all 300 of them.
Bitwise's claim that this is a furlough is absolutely smoke and mirrors. It's like putting the label banana on an apple. It doesn't make it true because you call it that. Nobody furloughs their entire staff out of an entire division in multiple locations. You do that because you're failing, you've collapsed.
Bonagdar points out the company did not follow the state's WARN Act requirements. When an employer has 100 employees, it is required to give notice to the state to activate resources to help those laid off. He says it didn't to anyone.
I think Bitwise is silent because they don't have any good answers. They're not going to come out and admit, yes, we knew we were worse than the Titanic a couple months ago, but we decided to not notify anyone.
Coming up here on the National Desk, Hollywood writers could have company on the picket lines. The next Hollywood vote coming up here in just 90 seconds. We could be just hours away now from another Hollywood strike. The Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, gave their members a deadline of today to vote on whether to authorize their negotiators to threaten a strike when their union leaders enter talks with studio heads on Wednesday. Now, like the Writers Guild of America, who's entering the second month of their strike, SAG-AFTRA is seeking higher wages and safeguards against their likeness to be used in AI-driven content. This comes as the Directors Guild of America reached a tentative deal with major film studios this weekend, a 3-year agreement that includes gains in wages, residuals, and projections around the use of AI for its 19,000 union members. The DGA will hold a vote to ratify that agreement tomorrow night. The WGA indicated that the deal would not end their work stoppage. And in the skies, United Airlines pilots could vote to strike as negotiations for better pay continue now. The pilots' union voted unanimously to authorize a strike vote. American Airlines pilots reaching a preliminary deal, and Southwest pilots have voted to authorize a strike as negotiations there drag on. That does it for us today. Don't forget to join us for the evening edition of the National Desk tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. And for more, you can always visit us anytime at thenationaldesk.com. I'm Eugene Ramirez. Thanks so much for joining us.